It's me, Lil. I'm back with several items to cover for you. Oh, this past 2 weeks have been a weeks of ups and downs, but I'm gonna try to focus mostly on the ups. Let's start with a couple of movies I saw recently with Lil's Lights, Camera, Action. Once again, this was a case of one movie that was really, really good and another movie that was really, really bad. Okay, let's start with the bad one, which was Tron Ares, the third installment in the Tron series that comes around every 10 years, it feels like. If you're like me, an 80s baby, you definitely have feelings of nostalgia about the original Tron movie and how cool it was back in the day and the effects being so awesome. But I don't know if that nostalgia is enough to really keep this whole franchise going, especially when this last movie was so weak. It's about this AI program soldier, played by Jared Leto, who is in the Tron world, which is like a video game, but the creators want to bring him into the real world. Well, it just evolves into your typical kind of Pinocchio robot wants to be a really human story. But unfortunately, Jared Leto is so stone-faced and stoic. No emotions. Like, even when his character, the AI character, is developing empathy and humanity and a love for Depeche Mode, none of that reflects on Jared's face. He just keeps giving sexy Jesus, smoldering looks, nothing else. Who was excellent, though, in a supporting role was Jodie Turner-Smith. It's another AI program called Athena. She definitely gave us the range of emotions. She kicked ass, and I'd like to also say that I'm really glad that these directors of photography are finally learning how to light dark-skinned black women. She looked luminous. The one good thing I can say about the movie is the score done by Nine Inch Nails is very good and completely appropriate. It matches all the action sequences, which were also really good, very well. The soundtrack is worth a listen. I think it's their best one that they've done yet. It just matches the movie perfectly. But this one, it's gonna get a Lil's letter grade of a C. You don't need to screen it, that's for sure. You don't really even need to stream it unless, like me, you do have nostalgia for the original Tron. This one you can skip. The movie that I did see that was really, really, really good was If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, which is this psychological black comedy starring Rose Byrne with great supporting performances from Conan Bryan, Danielle McDonald, who I love, Christian Slater, and A$AP Rocky, who we'll come back to. First of all, Rose Byrne, Australian. She's one of those really talented actresses who's just as adept at doing comedy as she is at doing drama. She was great in the dramatic series Damages with Glenn Close. And then, of course, we love her in Bridesmaids and my personal favorite, Spy, with Melissa McCarthy. But this movie has Rose going full on dramatic. There's lots of drama. She's this mom who's taking care of an ill child. We don't exactly know the type of illness the child has, but she has a feeding tube and some kind of aversion to food, it seems like. So Rose is trying to help her gain weight, and of course she buys all this food, and she ends up kind of eating it herself because the daughter's not really eating it. And I feel bad for Rose because hopefully they didn't have to do like too many takes of her stuffing her face with pizza and peanut butter cups. I mean, I would have just been sick. So it turns out that Rose's character is also a therapist, and we see her going to see her therapist, who is Conan O'Brien, doing what he needs to do. Then we have Danielle McDonald, who's was amazing in Patty Cakes and Dumpling. If you haven't seen those movies, see them. She plays one of Rose's patients who's struggling with being a new mom. So, Rose is struggling with being the mom of a sickly child. She and her daughter have to move into a hotel after the ceiling collapses in their apartment. And the father is pretty much an absent dad. We don't really even see him. He's just kind of this voice on the phone until the end of the movie. We also don't really see the daughter for most of the movie. We just hear her voice and her annoying complaining that she does all throughout the movie, which reminded me of the horrible children that I sat next to on the L train recently. I was just going one stop, but in that one stop, I almost stopped and smacked them. They were like children of the corn, just crying and wailing, like, everything that the kids say in the movies when they're being annoying, they said. They were like, I don't know, 5 or 6. They were like, Mommy, I'm hungry. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And the mom was just standing there, not responding. She distanced herself from the whole situation, which is probably what I'd do too if I was mom. But this just reinforced all the reasons not to become a mom. Anyway, back to Rose. She is giving the performance of her lifetime. Probably the best performance she's ever done in this movie. There's a lot of close-up shots of her, so you get to see every emotion that passes through her face, through her eyes, all the frustration, the guilt, the anger, the shame. And then at the end, she has this kind of physical battle with the ocean that's a manifestation of everything that she's been going through. It was a really solid performance. She's always been reliable, but now she's taking it to the next strata, and I expect we'll hear her name come Oscar time. I was very surprised and pleased to see A$AP Rocky in this movie as well. He plays a gentleman who's also at the hotel with Rose and the little girl. I'm just loving it that A$AP Rocky went from being a pretty good rapper and Rihanna's baby daddy to now he's starring in like art house films. The A24 psychological drama. He was in the Spike Lee movie earlier this year. I mean, he just went for it. No little cameos for him. Like, either he has a really good agent or he auditions really well. I don't know. But his performance in this was charming and funny and also very different from his performance in Spike Lee's Highest to Lowest. So he's showing some range. I'm excited to see more acting from A$AP Rocky. Anyway, the movie was great. You don't have to see it in the theaters, but definitely watch it when it's streaming. I give it a Lil's letter grade of an A+. Moving on to Stage Left with Lil, I saw quite a few things recently that were interesting, something I'd been meaning to see for a long time, but I had to wait until the ticket price went down. Something that I'd never seen before that I always wanted to see. Let's start with the high ticket priced Broadway musical, The Outsiders, which is based on the novel by S.E. Hinton that most of us had to read when we were in high school. If you didn't read the book, you probably saw the Francis Ford Coppola movie starring all the 80s hotties of the time. C. Thomas Howell, Ralph Macchio, Tom Cruise, Patrick Swayze, Matt Dillon. It was, just a cornucopia of cute guys. So the story is about these young kids living in Tulsa. Kind of the same story you've seen before. Class wars between the Socs, which are the upper class teenagers with all the money, and the Greasers, who are the low class, other side of the tracks kids just trying to make ends meet. There was quite a few strong elements to the show. The music is really well done. It gives us sometimes country rhythms and sometimes a little bit of rockabilly sound, but also you still have your sweet ballads and soaring ensemble numbers. The staging is really well done too, in the direction. They do a lot of interesting things, just even using slow motion movements that really capture the eye. There's also the climactic fight scene between the Socs and the Greasers, which is done in the rain. I still can't quite figure out how they did that effect, but it was pretty cool to see. Um, at the end, I was like, this was really the best musical of that year. It won the Tony. And then I looked back at the list, and yeah, it kind of was. The other nominees were Softs, which I hated, Water for Elephants, which was slightly better, Illinois, which was not even musical theater, it was more dance. And then really the only other competition the Outsiders had was Hell's Kitchen, the Alicia Keys musical, which was very entertaining, but The Outsiders, all around, was a better production. I give it a Lil's letter grade of a B+. Now, the show that I'd always wanted to see that I finally did was At the Joyce, featuring the Jose Limon Dance Company, who I'd always heard good things about. They've been around for several decades, but I just never got a chance to see them. And now that I have, I don't think I need to see them again. Once was enough. The first two pieces were collegiate, let's say. The sets looked maybe a little better than my high school production of Guys and Dolls. The choreography was totally uninspired. It was just not good. They did redeem themselves with the third piece that closed the show, which actually had interesting costumes, well thought out lighting, and choreography that was much more contemporary than the classic stuff they'd shown earlier. I say see them once and then never again. The next experience I had was at the Shed, seeing the new immersive production from Punch Drunk, the British company that brought us Sleep No More, that ran for so many years over on the West Side. Sleep No More was another immersive theater experience. It took place in a large warehouse. It was a take on Macbeth, and you followed the actors all around the warehouse doing their different scenes, and it was really cool. This was much more stripped down. It almost reminded me of my elementary school carnivals, haunted house at points, 'cause you're just kind of going through a maze of rooms that are dark. You follow the lights. Occasionally something lights up that you follow, but you're in the dark for a good portion of it. There's a little bit of crawling too, but just once. It's a full sensory experience, or kind of sensory deprivation, as it were. Story is narrated by Helena Bonham Carter, who you have in your headphones as you travel through the set. It's kind of an Alice in Wonderland story of Viola and her adventures. You move through the rooms, and sometimes apparently you could smell things. I didn't smell anything, but others in my group of 6 could. The other thing I'd say is don't be the last person to go through the rooms in the group of 6, because I got stuck somewhere in the dark for I don't even know how long. Somebody from the production had to come through and shine a flashlight on me to get me moving in the right direction. So maybe just try to be in the middle. It was interesting. It was definitely not as great as Sleep No More, and I don't know if it was quite worth the $75 ticket price. But if you're a fan of immersive theater, I say check it out. It gets a Lil's letter grade of a B, and it runs at the Shed until November 14th. Now Lil's Loose Lips has to give a tribute to some dearly departed celebrities from the past couple of weeks. You know it comes in threes. First we had Diane Keaton, everybody's favorite funny lady with a style all her own. My favorite Diane Keaton movies, definitely Father of the Bride. She's the perfect straight man against Steve Martin's crazy antics. And then we had musical R&B neo-soul singer D'Angelo, who passed away. If you're a young girl growing up in the late 90s, you saw his Untitled How Does It Feel video, and it propelled you into womanhood. It's one of the sexiest videos ever made. He shall be missed. And then we were hoping the third was going to be Mitch McConnell, who had another fainting spell in Congress, but somehow Mitch is still hanging on. And the third person was Ace Frehley, the guitarist for Kiss, one of our favorite glam rock bands. Now it's time for everybody's favorite segment, Moments with Mommy. We've had quite a few interesting ones with her lately, starting with when I told her that I got a part-time job at the Bryant Park Holiday Market. And she was like, "Market? What is that?" I was like, it's like a market where the vendors sell different things, like candles and stuff. And she was like, "Shit. Oh, okay." I've also told Mommy back in September that I was going to Colombia with a group of friends. And Mommy doesn't like me traveling too much or spending money on travel, but that's what brings me joy. So pretty much every week since I've told her that, she's tried to talk me out of it. And this past week, leading up to my trip, the relations between the U.S. and Colombia are a bit strained. So Mommy definitely didn't want me going. And every day, she'd ask me, "Are you still going to Colombia?" And every day I'd be like, "Yeah, still going. Everything's been booked and paid for. We're all seasoned travelers. We're going to be in a big city. We'll be safe." And then the next time she hits me up with, "I had a bad dream about your trip to Colombia." I was like, "Really? What happened?" She was like, "I don't want to tell you." I was like, why not?" She was like, "It'll just scare you." Well, maybe you could help me. Like, why don't you tell me what happened to the dream? Did I fall off a horse? Did I get swept away in the ocean? That way I'll know to avoid horses in the ocean. She was like, "No, it's too dark. I don't want to tell you." So, I'll have that on my mind while I'm in Colombia. I'll make sure to tell you guys about that trip when I get back. I want to give a couple shout outs before I wrap it up. I want to shout out 15-year-old Charlotte from New Jersey, my first non-friend or family member subscriber. And thanks to my homegirl Olivia, who's friends with Charlotte and turned Charlotte on to Life with Lil. And of course, I also have to shout out Olivia's sister Maddie because she rocks and is very good at volleyball. All right, come back next time where you'll hear more about my Colombia trip and some other adventures I had in an interesting area called Flatbush.